Checkout, the podcast of Evanston Public Library. I'm Jill Schacter. So, what exactly will we be checking out here? This is a podcast celebrating and educating on all things Evanston, including cool people doing amazing things across the diverse spectrum of the Evanston we love. Along the way, you just might learn a little something about the role the library plays in our community. I'm here today with Meleika Gardner, who's lived in Evanston on and off since her high school years. Meleika has been on an inspiring path with lots of creative twists and turns and years spent in Atlanta and LA, oftentimes rubbing shoulders and working with lots of well-known artists and producers. As a young woman, she toured as a dancer for LaFace Records, a joint venture with the artist Babyface and Arista Records. Artists with LaFace included Damien Dame, TLC, Outkast, Usher, and Pink. She also worked with Concord Music Group and learned directly from then co-owner Norman Lear, and also while in LA did casting for independent films. Back in Evanston in 2013, Meleika started Evanston Live TV, and we'll learn more about that today. Her latest venture is her work with We Will, which stands for Women Empowering Women in Local Legislation. Just one more great story we'll learn more about in this episode of the Checkout Podcast. Welcome, Meleika.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for having me.
So tell me about sort of how it all began, how you ended up getting from Evanston and Chicago to Atlanta in the early 90s. What was that path, and who inspired you along the way? How did you get there? Who pushed you along? How did you push yourself?
Well, I was attending Xavier University in New Orleans, and I was transferring to Columbia College. And I had started attending Columbia, and I absolutely loved Columbia. That was where I belong. You know, the creative, artistic, people who just wanted to just create and, be themselves. And then some friends of mine had said, let's go to Atlanta. And I was like, what's in Atlanta? And at that time, Atlanta was becoming, people were writing articles saying that Atlanta was becoming the new Motown. And, I never thought about Atlanta, Georgia ever in my life. My dream was to always go to LA. So I said, well, let's go to LA. They were like, no, LA is full of everybody trying to make it. Atlanta's like the new happening spot. So let's go. So I just took a chance and, I hopped on a plane and went to Atlanta, and that was it. Actually, I started working with Bobby Brown's camp when we first got there. And then through a mutual friend, we met Dallas Austin. Then I met the choreographers for LaFace, and I had heard about LaFace was this new label, and their first artist was Damien Dame. And a friend of mine had said, you should go to the audition. And I was hostessing at Bennigan's restaurant at that time.
A great launching path.
Yeah, I was like 19, and they were like, you need to come down to the audition right now. I said, well, I'm at work. And they were like, forget that job. You need to come down to this audition. This is important. L.A. Reid, like, everybody's here. It's like 500 girls here. You got to be here. And I had this ethic about work. Like, well, I can't just leave work, And a friend of mine actually came and pulled me out of Bennigan's and said, get your butt over to this audition. And I went in, and I literally had an hour to learn the routine. And the other hundreds of girls, they had hours to learn it. I had to learn it in an hour, and it came down to two of us.
Wow.
So I got with LaFace Records.
That's awesome. You owe a lot to that friend who pulled you out of Bennigan's.
Yes, I do. We're still friends today. Yes.
And did you have many years behind you of dance? Is that what you were doing at Columbia College? Was it dance?
Yeah, I was deep into African dance. That was my heart, my passion. But I grew up. My mom had me in ballet, jazz, tap. I was on the pom pom squad at ETHS. That was like my heart, my passion.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and then at Columbia, I met Darlene Blackburn. She taught African dance, and my gosh, she changed my life. It tapped a vein in me. I just love dance, and I did it into, after I got off the road with LaFace Records, I continued with African dance. It just, something about it just wakes up a spirit in me. It just really touches a vein.
Can you tell me a little bit about just what's it like to be a dancer out on the road with a band? Like, most people will not ever know anything about that experience. So can you just tell a little bit about like what was great about that, or what was fun about it, or just anything to give us a look into that life?
So I will tell you, at that audition where it came down to two of us, she had more of the street moves. She hit the street moves a little harder, the hip-hop moves a little harder than I did. But the first show that they did with her, she froze. She got stage fright. And so then they called me.
Wow.
And I literally had, oh my goodness, I had about a week to learn 5 dance routines. We were scheduled to be on Soul Train. We were scheduled to be on Apollo Theater. We had all these show dates, just all over the country. It moved very fast. And I was living in an apartment with 4 other girls in Atlanta. And I busted my tail learning those routines. They had us rehearsing 8 hours. It was a job, and we got paid. Back then, they paid dancers very well, hip-hop dancers very, very well. It moved really fast, and a limo came to my little neighborhood and picked me up to take me to the airport to meet, the group and everything. And that was it. It just moved very fast. And being on the road, the constant flying. At first it was exciting. It was times we were very, very tired, knocked out sleep on the plane. I would come home and my friends would be like, let's go to the club, let's go party. And I would be exhausted. Like I just wanted to sleep. But, we would go out and have fun, and the clubs opened the doors to me because I was part of LaFace. So being young and experiencing that and seeing all the celebrities, all the legends that I respected out there on the road, and sometimes we would open up for them. It was exciting, but it was some hardcore lessons in there too. Being a woman, a young woman, and you saw what the expectations were of women wanting to make it in the industry. And so, oftentimes I was met with that. And so it was bittersweet. It was exciting, but I really learned that the industry is very cold and can be very lonely. There were times I would be in the hotel room, and if we weren't out at parties or things, sometimes I didn't want to go to the parties, but I would be in a hotel room and just kind of lonely out there.
Yeah.
Out there on the road.
I know you told me you met so many different people, including the Jacksons and Diana Ross. So there's a lot of glamour, but that's not all. That's not all it is.
Oh yes, a lot that comes with it. And I was just a dancer, so the artists, especially the women, and just what they would go through, you had to really be hungry to want it.
Yeah.
And, and you're often presented with pretty much selling your soul. You're constantly propositioned, and they would test to see how hungry you were. And I guess I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
I wasn't that hungry.
That's good. You kept your appetite in check. I know you also spent time out in LA, and you had a freelance casting business. What can you tell us about that period of time out in LA? That was in independent films.
Yes. Working at Concord, I got to watch Norman Lear work, and many people know him. He produced a lot of the 70s hits that we know and love, and he was he was at that time partnering with Village Roadshow and doing films, so I was seeing a lot of how it worked, and I always had this thing about spotting talent more than wanting to be in front of the camera. I was always wanting to give somebody else an opportunity. So I started my own freelance casting company, Gardner Casting, and I got into holding auditions for different production companies, negotiating contracts for the talent, and it was great. It was great to see it all come to life and seeing the talent that I chose. But even in that, it was interesting. I was often the only woman at the casting table with a lot of men, producers, writers, directors. And even with that, I would have to fight for the best actress as opposed to the actress that one of them wanted to be with. So, it came with that challenge. I was like, boy, this industry is a trip and a half. But I really enjoyed casting. I did.
Well, I'm sure that all these incredible experiences you've had, so creative and entrepreneurial, must be coming into play back in the smaller field of Evanston, where you returned in 2013. Your mom, Fran Joy, is an artist herself, so you have a creative background. So you started Evanston Live TV around 2013. So tell us about Evanston Live TV, how it started. I know it's had a number of different formats and that it's changing even again. So talk us through how and why you started Evanston Live TV. What were your goals? Why did you think this was something that the community needed?
When I came back from LA, it's been about 6-7 years now. I've lost, as I get older, timelines get really blurry. But it's been about 6-7 years I've been back from LA to Evanston. And when I got back here, I just noticed we didn't have, we had the publications, we had Roundtable, Evanston Now, and the Tribune and Daily Northwestern, and that was it. So I wanted to not necessarily do print, because I was writing for some online publications, because I am a writer. I studied that in school as well. But I wanted to do a podcast. So I started a podcast initially called the 30 Plus WTF. Then I changed it to 40 Plus WTF. So I was starting to really get to know who the movers and shakers were in Evanston, what people were doing, the voices of the people. And then it started to pick up some momentum. And then one of the things I started hearing from everyone was, it would be great to see these people if it was, actual video. And so I changed it to a video platform, to Evanston Live TV. And I grabbed my phone and I hit the streets guerrilla style, as they say in the independent world, just guerrilla style, and just started putting my phone up in people's faces. So what do you think? And and I did it at the right time, because that was during the elections in Evanston. So the mayoral and the alderman elections, it was perfect timing. And then I had bought a little GoPro camera, and I put it on the windshield of the car, and I asked candidates to get in the car with me. And they totally forgot the camera was even there, because it was so small. So they would really open up. And then Evanston residents, the feedback was, this is great. We really get to know who the candidates are. You're showing another side to them, as opposed to just the speeches, the debates. We're actually seeing them relaxed to the point they're even forgetting they're being recorded. And so I think it really helped a lot of the candidates too. And so I was told that Evanston Live TV helped to bring out more voters. They hadn't had that kind of voter turnout since the 1970s.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did people find Evanston Live TV? Is it where would someone see what you were doing? Is this all social media or?
Yeah, it was all social media. That's how it was coming into the living room. So it started out Facebook, and then I started posting on YouTube as well, and then I started posting on Instagram.
And will you be covering upcoming Evanston elections as well?
Yeah, I've already interviewed Daniel Biss, Senator Biss. I interviewed Sebastian Knowles. So both of them are running for mayor. I interviewed Diane Goldring. She's running for 4th Ward.
And people can find these interviews and more that you do on Evanston,
Facebook, YouTube. Mm-hmm.
Under Evanston Live TV, Facebook or YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I have some other candidates lined up. I really wanted to wait until after the filing because that's when you know who's really in it, who's really running.
Right. Well, we'll look for those. That'll be great. You would do a lively interview. What other topics have you covered over these years that have been meaningful to you? What have you felt sort of has been impactful other than these kind of candidate interviews, which are really important for energizing voters and informing voters? What other topics do you gravitate toward?
Well, I guess this is still part of the election. The interview with Devon when he was released from jail, when he was petitioning to get on.
Devon Reed was running for clerk. And will you describe what happened, just for people who aren't aware of this story?
Devon Reed was petitioning to get on the ballot to run for city clerk, and he was arrested. He was arrested for not complying with giving all of his information, which you don't have to give all the information that the police officer was asking, and he knew his rights. And so they arrested him, and they arrested him the day before the deadline to turn in your petition to get on the ballot. I met Devon at the Civic Center when he had gotten out of jail, and I just really wanted to get that story. And I believe that interview helped Evanston Live TV and helped him as well, because it went viral throughout Evanston. I think it hit like 10,000 views in under 48 hours.
That's huge.
Yeah, that was very important to me. Rob Creighton interview was important to me. That was very controversial.
Tell me about that.
Rob Creighton, he had served time and was looking at serving more time at that time for alleged drug dealing. And he wanted to open up a business in the 5th Ward, and he was denied. It was just very, very, very controversial. But I have a heart for those who, you know, they're just trying to make it. They're just trying to make it, and though some may choose a dark path in which to do that. I just wanted to show another side to him, because the other publications that kind of painted him as this monster. But I mean, there are some criminals, you know, rapists and just bona fide killers. You know, I'm not going to go to bat for. But those who feel like they're at a point where they just have to do what they have to do to feed their family.
Yes.
I wanted to show a different side to him. I mean, and he served his time, and he was wanting to do something right. He wanted to start a business, and I just wanted to show another side to him. So stories like that, I'm just wanting to show another side to a person. Devon was being painted as a monster, and I just wanted to show another side to him. Like, here's the truth. Here's the story, his side of the story. Yeah, there's been a lot of those type of stories I love to do. Ian Beatty, the 12-year-old that was arrested for
riding his bike in the street.
I think he was riding on the back of a bike, or yeah.
Right. What is that? 13 years old or something, or 15? I don't know how. Very young teenager.
Yeah, he was a baby, and he was put in a paddy wagon. Like, how? That's trauma that he's going to live with forever. Devon's going to live with that trauma forever. It's just, those types of stories. I just like to hear another side and get down to the person, like Rob Creighton, like who he really is, and why did he choose that path, and who is he today going forward. Those are the stories I love.
Well, thank you for doing these stories that are really important in the community. We'll get back to talking about Evanston Live and sort of the change it's taken after we talk about your exciting work with We Will, which is new for you and started about a year ago. So We Will, Women Empowering Women in Local Legislation. You have chosen education as a path to fight systemic racism. And part of that is through your work with We Will. And I know you've brought a couple of bills to the legislature on the teaching of real history of African Americans, not just beginning from slavery, but pre-slavery in the education system. Can you tell me about why you've taken this path, what inspired you to do this, and talk about your work with We Will? It's pretty exciting.
Thank you, Jill. In doing some of the stories that I've done, and just being a Black woman in America, I know that how education is taught, our education system needs some work. And I believe that that's at the root of systemic racism. So my fight was for Black history expansion, working with Representative LaShawn K. Ford out of the 8th District, in working with Alexandra Eidenberg, the founder of We Will. She helped me to get in touch with him. And he had already had a bill on the table for Black history in terms of making sure that they continue to teach slavery in school. But I approached him with an idea of teaching pre-enslavement, because I think that it's important for all children, Black children, white children, all children, to know who Black people were prior to becoming enslaved. That we built civilizations and kingdoms and contributed to medicine and architecture and literature. That is very, very important. I truly believe if children are taught that K through 12, that will start to chip away at this perception of who Black people are. Because right now, children are taught that we started as slaves, that our history started in bondage and chains, and that's just not the truth. So if you grow up just seeing these Black people, oh, you were slaves, not kings, queens, and doctors, and architects, and writers,
Yeah, there's nothing inspiring about that. And also it was inflicted upon by others. It's really more white history than Black history.
Correct. And I think they need to tell the full story of how we came to be enslaved, the truth of it, because they're trying to water that down. They're trying to say that we were happy to come over here, that we were happy migrants, happy migrant workers. That's what some history books are saying now. So they're even trying to change that. And no, you have to tell the truth. You have to tell the truth. And, when I look at some of the people that I love to do stories on, it explains why they're treated the way that they are, how they ended up in handcuffs in the first place, because that's what people think that's what people were taught as kids about who Black people are. And so we're constantly having to work twice as hard to prove, no, this isn't who I am. I came from this. This is my history. So I truly believe that teaching pre-enslavement will start to chip away at that systemic racism and create better race relations, because there will be that respect for who Black people are, what we have contributed to the world, this country as well as the world, who we are. And that's why I was pushing for the amendment to HB 4954. And I've gone to the Capitol in Springfield and testified, and have been fighting, putting a coalition of educators and volunteers together. We've been calling House representatives, calling Madigan's office, calling senators, and we've done several press conferences, and just to get the word out that this has to change. This has to change, and I think this is the start.
Is there something that Evanstonians, or really anybody listening to this podcast, can do to help that along?
Well, because of COVID, they were actually due back in Springfield this month in November for a veto session to vote on it. It did pass House committee back in March, so it moved to the floor for a vote, but then COVID hit, so then it was moved to November for a veto session, and now COVID, nobody can go back to the Capitol. So now it's being moved to January. I don't know what makes them think COVID is going to disappear by January, but it's been moved to January.
I don't think so.
I wish they would make it where Illinois representatives can vote via Zoom. Representative Ford said, that's something that, that they're really trying to work out, because it doesn't look like COVID is going anywhere, at least for another 6 months to maybe a year. So they got to pass some bills in the meantime, to change some things. So, we'll see what happens. So as of right now, we're still pushing the bill. We also have Bill 5851, which is the inclusive bill that includes, we want to make sure the history of women is taught to our youth, the truth about Native Americans in this country, just everyone who has built America, make sure that they are indeed included. So both of those bills are on the table, and they're coming back up in January. And let's hope that they're able to vote via Zoom. Otherwise, it'll be pushed out to the spring.
It sounds exciting, and it sounds like really important work to teach proper history, true history.
Yes.
I understand that you met Kamala Harris during part of your time with We Will. What was that like, now that she is our vice president-elect?
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, that was the determining factor of me coming on the board of We Will, because at that time I wasn't on the board. I was just checking out We Will, and Alexandra had approached me. She was like, I would love to have you on the board. And I was like, oh, let me think about it, because I know being on a board is it's a responsibility. You have to take it seriously. And so I wanted to just check it out a little bit. So she offered me this trip to Iowa to the caucus to meet all the candidates at that time. And the bus that I was on was mainly Kamala supporters, thank God. And and I said, you know what, I'm going to go. I've never been on a trip like that ever. I've never been to anything like that. I've never been to anything like that ever. And I was nervous but excited. And then there Kamala was. What I loved about her, what I connected was, I've spoken to many politicians, city officials. Some will connect with you, could tell that they're present when you're talking to them. And then some, you could tell they are not present. They could really care less what the hell you are talking about. Just let's take the picture so I can show people that I took a picture with this woman. Kamala was very present. And I mean, she was like this close, like looking into my eyes, listening to every word that I was saying. You know, it was a ton of people in that room, and she took that time to talk to me and hear me out. And I told her I was very concerned. I'm concerned about, you know, healthcare. I just told her my reality, my truth. And I know that my reality, my truth is for a lot of people in the country right now. And like she helped, you know, she like held my hand and she held my shoulder and she like leaned and she was really listening and just really connected. And she just told me, she assured me that everything was going to be all right. And at that time, she was still running for president. She hadn't, matter of fact, she stepped out of the race either the next day or the day after that. So I didn't know if she knew at that time, but her last words to me were, Meleika, we got this, we will win. So I kept her picture up as my cover picture on Facebook because I just believed, but a lot of people had kind of like, when she stepped out of the race, they were like, oh, your girl stepped out, kind of like teasing me, kind of making fun of me, like, oh, you know. No, I still believed. I said, I don't know what this woman's going to do, but she's going to do something. And I kept that picture up. And sure enough,
you did it.
We didn't know she was going to.
You did it. You did
sure
it.
Enough. I believed. I felt her energy. I'm big on energy with people, feeling their energy. And I totally felt her energy that day.
That's super exciting. Well, we're going to wind up. I'm wondering if there's anything else you would like to tell people about either Evanston Live TV. I know it's making some shifts, or about getting involved in We Will. Any sort of last suggestions for people, either who might want to catch you on Evanston Live TV and it's in the new things that you're doing, or We Will?
Yeah, if people want to, women, We Will stands for We Will, Women Empowering. I
know what it is. I have it written down here. Women Empowering Women in Local Legislation.
Yes.
That's it.
We're about helping women and children get involved in legislation. So anyone wanting to, you know, learn more about the process. If you have some ideas, you got a bill you want to support, you got a bill you want to co-author, you know, then I think We Will is the organization for you. Yeah, I think I've learned so much. I've learned a lot through We Will, and it has given me some experiences that have literally changed my life. That has changed my life. Evanston Live TV, you know, we're expanding out, and you know, I'll just say stay tuned for more on that. I'm excited about Evanston Live TV. Evanston Live TV has opened up doors to so many other things. I've started doing hosting events, even on Zoom during COVID. Moderating events, organizing press conferences for other organizations, because I've become an expert at press conferences now. So Evanston Live TV is just, it's really starting to open up to so many other things. But it will always be about hearing people's stories. That's what I'm about. It kind of ties in with the casting a little bit, because you really got to dig into people to get what's real in them out. And I've always been about that. And even with the writing, one of the classes I took at Columbia College, which I will never forget, I've held on to forever. One of the exercises was to go out into the street and just pick strangers and write a story around them. What do you think their life is like? What do you think their day is like? And I would create all these great stories, and everybody in my class would be like, oh my God, your imagination is off the chain. It's like, you know, I just love hearing people's stories and diving into people and their energy. And so that's always going to be Evanston Live TV, always, even though it's branching off into so many other things. But that's always going to be hearing people's stories and getting them out there.
Well, thank you so much for telling us a bit about your story today, and thank you for everything that you do in and for the Evanston community, Meleika.
Thank you. Thank you to the Evanston Public Library. I was looking forward to just going in there. When I went to Robert Crown, that was a controversial subject right there. When I went to the new Robert Crown, I was so looking forward to using those conference rooms, those meeting rooms. It looked so peaceful in there. I mean, I had it all planned out. I'm going to go to Starbucks, get my coffee, and go to Robert Crown, to the Evanston Public Library, and just chill and be. I was so looking forward to that. So I can't wait till COVID is over and we can get back out there. And
I mean,
thank you all for your service.
Thank you. The library is still open, even though there are, it's not really a hangout place during COVID. We let people stay for an hour in and out. So thank you again, Meleika. I really appreciate talking to you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. And I want to remind you that we are your public library. We are always here for you, in person or at epl.org.